Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the draft for Game 2 of Omega Gaming Syndicate versus the Akuma Shurikens in the LHGPL Grand Finals. I am Gordo, and I am joined once again by Rudude. And Rudude, we're getting right into these bands.
Exactly, and already we see a little bit of a differentiation from the Akuma Shurikens right here. We can see that the Malphite has been taken off of the ban table, the Graves and the Zillion have been put firmly back on it, and we're going to see a definitely different draft coming through here, because even though Akuma took the Graves for themselves this time around, they're not going to allow that B1 pick to come through. Syndicate's plans have remained the exact same, I believe, from game 1 to game number 2, and right here is going to be a determining ban if they go for something completely different, or if they pick up that Lilia or that Malphite from game number 1.
Definitely could be a good opportunity for a Lilia ban here, but they are just still hovering it. Nothing gets banned here. Let's see if they are going to say something in the chat. Yes, it is going to be a Volibear ban coming through for the side of Akuma.
And with that being taken away right there, the Lilia that was banned away in game number 1 is open in game number 2 here, and we'll have to see that. I assume Syndicate would pick this one up. They do indeed, because they don't want to give this over to Hexmist. Lilia as a jungler is incredibly potent right now. Just the movement speed, the all-around damage, and everything that she can provide to a team composition with that potential 5-man sleep is just too big and too huge not to be picking up here for Fallen Artemis in the jungle.
Yeah, you said it yourself, Rudude. It is one of the most contested jungle picks in the current meta, and it is going to be going into the hands of Fallen Artemis for this game. Meanwhile, we are going to see the side of Akuma going to be hovering a couple of different junglers here to decide what to go for, and they end up locking in the Rek'Sai.
Exactly, so a little bit of early aggression here, maybe trying to force the Lilia out of her jungle before that jungle item has been fully completed here. Rek'Sai known for his early game or her rather early game dominance, and if that Rek'Sai can come to the full force of an early game, definitely fits Hexmist's playstyle. We mentioned it in the pre-show in game number 1. First Blood Kingdom, essentially, with the over 50% games or 50% First Blood ratio coming through from the regular season. If there's a champion to try and do it on, Rek'Sai is definitely up there.
Certainly is, has access to that flash on Burrow and so much burst damage on that pick, and now we're going to see it. The side of Syndicate has an opportunity here, counterpicking the Misfortune with the Jhin and going to be pairing it with the Leona that was banned out in game 1.
Exactly, so a lot of engage potential already from Syndicate, something that we'd highlighted from game number 1 as something that maybe was lacking for both of the rosters. The Leona has the potential to pull the trigger to engage from a good distance with that solar flare. I like the answer of the Thresh down in the bot lane should reduce the laning potency of this Leona by a substantial amount here. Being able to flay out the Zenith Blade is the key reason that this lane is typically very Thresh favored. Misfortune is an ADC as well, very dominant in the early game. So for me, the Akuma Shuriken should be looking to use this bot lane advantage that they've drafted for themselves and try and exploit it in the early game.
Yeah, and this Thresh clearly is Asymmetric's go-to counter pick towards this Leona. When the Leona was banned, or when the Thresh was banned away in game 1, that was Akuma's signal to ban away this Leona. But now both picks going to end up locked in here for this game 2 draft as we enter phase 2 of bans. Likely going to be focused up towards the solo laners here as we have identical roles chosen for both sides. The Urgot ban coming through for the side of Akuma.
Exactly, the Urgot and Malphite ban as well. So Urgot being taken away from Blood King for game number 2, as we saw him dominate on game number 1. And the Malphite mid lane pocket pick still being taken away. We have to keep mentioning it because it's something that is so spicy, so entertaining that if it slips through the bans, I'm going to be disappointed if Intexi doesn't pick it up. Something that we can mention, though, is that with these bans that Akuma have gone for this time around, they've actually left open the Diana, which is something that they were hot to ban away in game number 1. And with that open, could be a comfort go-to mid laner. With something like the Syndra still available, though, there are a few options for blind picks.
Yeah, and Texi win an MVP in that first game on the Syndra, is able to get onto it again this game. Would likely be a blind pick, though, as this Cho'Gath has been locked in by the Akuma Shurikens. It is going to be a blind mid regardless, so we'll see what Intexi decides to go for. perhaps the Syndra, like we saw in game one, as a pretty safe, blindable mid laner, but also potentially this Diana just for comfort. It's being hovered, and it is going to be locked in Texie's Diana coming through for game two.
I need to put my crystal ball away for the rest of this draft, actually, because this is the comfort go-to pick right here for Intexi. Happy to blind this, and it gives Syndicate a little bit more time to think about what Blood King wants to take into this top lane versus what we assume could be the Cho'Gath. Obviously, is the potential for this to get flexed into the mid lane and have a heavier AP route, but with the lack of frontline from the Shurikens so far, we do expect to see that Cho'Gath go into the top lane and really just try and bully out any type of pick from Blood in the top side.
Yeah, they have to watch out with what they're going to blind pick here. It does end up being the Dr. Mundo, but Cho'Gath could potentially lane mid against that Diana. As you said, would not be too unfavorable a matchup for the big old Void monster there, but it does look like it's likely going to be top lane as Silas being hovered here for a matchup into the Diana.
Yeah, could definitely go toe to toe with the Diana at least in the early game here. And once that ultimate gets stolen away, a lot of team fight potential for the Akuma squad to maybe make something happen. We can see that they've drafted themselves a fairly early game dominant composition here with the first three picks and then rounded it out with some more consistent magical damage as we get in toward that late game. Jin going to be finding it really difficult to cut through a big tank like Cho'Gath and getting dove upon by the Rek'Sai, by the Sylas in particular. A lot of safety needs to be given to this Jin if he's going to be able to try and keep safe in the backline. We can see Syndicate have picked themselves up nearly, but essentially 4 diving champions up again and then left the Jin to be very isolated in that backline. So for Twisty on this pick, needs to be using that ultimate, using the W as a supportive role, and very cognizant of where he's trying to step, because if he gets in range of any portion of CC, definitely just going to get blown up and taken down.
Yeah, and I'd like to take a moment here and focus in on the opportunities seized upon by the side of Akuma Shurikens in locking in this Sylas. We've talked about it before, that when Sylas is stealing away ultimates, these big AoE damage ults are pretty much a dime a dozen. You're always going to end up against one or two and going to be able to steal them away. But what isn't always in ready availability is going to be tanky ults, ultimates that are going to enable Sylas to stay alive for longer and to sustain through fights if that's what's required in the situation. Against this Omega Syndicate squad, he is going to have that. He can steal away the Mundo ultimate and can get that massive amount of regen for himself in order to try to stay alive longer in these fights.
Exactly, and it'll be very telling which keystone he opts to go for here, because the fleet footwork is something that we've seen from Silas's for a number of patches right now, but with the potential amount of healing that can come through from the Conqueror, there's always an option with those cleaving auto attacks with the Mundo ultimate that we just see an absolutely ridiculous amount of healing coming out of this Silas early on. And even without it, I feel like Fleet Footwork and that stolen Mundo ultimate will be enough healing to warrant an Executioner's Calling coming on through. We know that Cho'Gath gets a little bit of passive healing from the passive, same with Rek'Sai. And if a lifeline gets picked up by Misfortune, then there's definitely enough healing there to maybe warrant some anti-healing coming on through. Mundo is a champion, obviously. Another champion that should have that built up against, so expect early Bramble Vest from the Cho'Gath. Expect some early Executioner's Callings as well, because Conqueror likely to come through for the Diana as this sustained DPS source. Can act as an assassin, but can also definitely function as an engaged duelist type mid laner.
Absolutely, and now we are going to be seeing these picks coming through in the actual champion select. Nothing too spicy. It is going to be the Cho'Gath top with the Sylas mid, as we expected. And want to keep an eye on this Rek'Sai pick in particular for Hexmist. He's now on a much stronger early game jungler versus the more farm out and scale style that he had picked for himself in game one. And going to be very interesting to see if he's going to be able to capitalize on this early on. Also, going to want to keep an eye on how the Shurikens as a team can play around Rek'Sai's Tremor Sense. It gives you a lot of alternative play styles with playing around vision once you actually have access to that Tremor Sense and can track opponents without wards. We'll see if Akuma is able to make something interesting happen as a result of that.
Exactly. A lot of unique gank paths are provided to you with this Rek'Sai. You have to be careful of more than just the river brushes in the early game here, because those tunnels are able to get you over so many walls, get you into such nice positions that the warding needs to be much deeper to spot out the potential Rek'Sai ganks, sort of the similar situation that we had a few games or a few days ago with a Hecarim situation. If you ward just in outside of your lane, that is often not enough to spot the gank coming, or it's often just a little too late at the very least.
Certainly something to be watched out for. Additionally, now we're going to be watching out for these bot laners here. I'm excited to see these two supports duke it out. They are both had these champions banned against them in game one and are now going to be returning on them in game two rather, as we're going to see. Can this Fresh be the counter to Leona that Asymmetric really needs it to be, or is Rutinium going to be able to find a lot of dominance in this bot lane through chain CCing along with Twisty's Jhin?
Exactly. The bot lane, I'm glad that you highlight that as a key power point, because I feel like that is where we should see Hexsmith spending a lot of his time in this early game. Now, with that being said, I think that the mid lane as well could prove a very volatile matchup for the early game at the very least. I think that the best place we can say not to expect action would be up on that top lane here. Two tanks probably going to be wet noodling on one another, just trying to whack away at one another, maybe doing some cheeky grasp micro stepping to get better grasp of the Undying procs, but other than that, we don't expect to see too much coming through on that top side of the map. Bot side and mid lane definitely going to be the focuses early on. Hexmist and Fallen going to need to be on top of one another and keeping track of each other, because both of these junglers do have fairly potent ganks. Lilia post level 6 and Rek'Sai really post level 3.
Absolutely something to watch out for there. Additionally, got to look for what kind of Keystone 9 line is going to be going for in that top lane for the Cho'Gath. We have seen some more aggressive Cho'Gath builds coming through previously with the Glacial Augment that then end up going into those Super Soaker-esque builds, almost building like how Ari did in the last game for the side of Sluter. We can see there's a chance the 9 line client wants to go for something a little bit more aggressive on this Cho'Gath and does take that path rather than the more tank-focused build.
Definitely with the sort of situational Silas AP damage, because he can get bursted down in a team fight if he gets CC chained here by the Lily Asleep, by the Leona. Maybe a little bit of follow-up damage from the Cho'Gath is something that is going to be needed for Akuma here. I like the damage profile from both teams. Both have a couple of AP sources and a couple of AD sources, so itemizing for the tanks definitely going to be very generic, but also means that they're going to be less effective overall.
Certainly excited to be getting into this one, Dude. We can see Intexi going to be on a powerful comfort pick after winning MVP in game one. Meanwhile, the Akuma Shurikens trying to strike back after game one and reclaim some of the dominance that they've exhibited throughout this entire season. We're going to bring that to you in just a second once we get loaded on into the game and synced up. But do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Game 2 of the LHGPL Grand Finals between Omega Gaming Syndicate and the Akuma Shurikens. We saw Omega Gaming Syndicate take Game 1 just a little bit ago, and now they are returning it to Game 2. And Rudude, we talked about the potential Glacial Augment Cho'Gath in Champion Select to be a little bit more aggressive, but what about the Hail of Blades Cho'Gath?
If you're looking for aggression, Gordo, Hail of Blades offers it to you in spades here in the top lane. The Vorpal Spike's going to be the key feature of this Hail of Blades Cho'Gath if we get a really quick repetition of auto attacks. And there's definitely a world where Nineline is able to focus down this Cho'Gath and maybe focus down the Mundo rather, and maybe get some cheeky early game kills coming on through. I'll have to keep an eye on that top lane because whenever you get one of these wacky keystones, something that gives a little bit more agency in the laning phase, it's always going to be entertaining. Grasp of the Undying as the matchup for Blood King, though, he's gone for something a little bit more standard, and for everybody else, it feels more so like they've picked the keystones that we expected from them, right? Maybe Rek'Sai with Conqueror, that they maybe would have thought of the Hail of Blades as the early game aggression keystone would be the pivotal one, but Conqueror going to provide more scaling so much into the late game.
Yeah, two Hail of Blade Void monsters on the
Lilia
same
here,
team
though.
comp would be a little bit too much for one draft, so it is only going to be the one, but it looks like they're going to be aggressing early on onto Fallen Artemis. He does manage to get down his chickens in time, but he's getting aggressed on by two people. The Hail of Blade Cho'Gath pushing out a lot of damage with those Void Spikes, but not enough to take out Fallen Artemis, as he's going to retreat back into his own jungle and has successfully stolen away the birds from his opponent.
Exactly, that is actually so huge for Omega Gaming Syndicate right there. Not only do they waste the time of both of the solo laners, Fallen gets to keep his flash, and Lilia as a jungler clears incredibly healthily, so it doesn't necessarily matter that we've taken that early chunk in the skirmish right there. The phase rush and the Lilia passive provide more than enough movement speed to get the Lilia to safety, and now both of these solo laners should be off to an incredibly strong lead because of the XP advantage.
Yeah, now it's going to be the bot lane on the side of Akuma hitting level 2 first, so they're going aggressive as a result. Asymmetric going to land the death sentence there onto Twisty. Well played by him, as he's going to get chunked out by the full combo and the press the attack trigger from Alive.
Exactly, and talking of XP advantages, Omega Gaming Syndicate not quite respecting the level 2 from the Akuma Shurikens right there. Twisty having to burn the heal to get to safety. Doesn't actually burn an ignite from asymmetric or anything like that, but overall, nice little trade in the bot lane for the Shurikens.
Yeah, I never know what to expect when this Hail of Blades Cho'Gath turns on the Vorpal Spikes and starts just going in with his Hail of Blades. I don't know if he's going to be maxing that ability to try to maximize burst potential, or if that was just kind of a cheese rune meant to try to get them the kill at the level 1, which didn't really work out.
I have to expect that this has been picked for laning phase and not on the off chance that the Lilia invades you. Definitely a very niche situation if they're going for that one. Intexi looking for a trade in the mid lane.
Yeah, no, Sluter and Texi going to be trading back and forth here, but Sluter just does not have the damage this early in the game, and Intexi was able to start off the fight, and so was getting Conqueror stacks sooner, able to heal up with that, and able to continue to win out on these trades.
Yeah, you can see 2 potions of corruption have already been used from Sluter in the mid lane, whereas there's still 2 health potions available for Intexi in the mid lane. So HP advantage firmly in the Diana's favor, as well as the fact that with that Doran's ring has actually got a little bit more trading power as well because of the AP that comes through, because of the HP and the resources as well.
Yeah, now Sluter going to be crucially missing that chain onto Intexi. Could have potentially gotten an even more favorable trade for himself there, as the Diana is incredibly low on mana. Intexi going to be forced to take a recall as a result, but he does have the teleport to get on back to lane if he chooses to use it.
Exactly. Forcing a recall early on, not necessarily too important when both of these mid laners have that TP. And I'll quickly draw everyone's attention back to this top side here. Nineline Client has reached level 4 and has opted to put his second point into the Vorpal Spikes. So definitely a world where this Cho'Gath starts building some intriguing items to maximize out on that Vorpal rush.
Yeah, definitely going to be something that synergizes along with that Hail of Blades, hoping to get all 3 procs off in very close succession there. But not going to be something that he's been able to make too much use of yet, as Blood King has taken an early CS lead, partially due to the fact that he had wave control early on because of the level 1, and also partially just because he's been winning out on these trades and landing these cleavers where he needs to.
Exactly, and I wonder if we see Titanic Cho'Gath coming out. It's something that is not really meta.
Splitter going to be catching out onto Rutinium here, managed to land some chains onto him, going to be chasing on in, but does not have any backup in order to proceed further.
Oh, he's just going to walk the way out of there, and Leona not able to secure the ward, but is able to find vision and find somebody of the Akuma Shuriken's roster right there. You can see that this top lane with 3 points now going to be in those Vorpal spikes, that looking starting to feel a little bit harder damaged in these trades. Without the recall coming through, without the level 6 either for the Mundo, still taking the back end of trades at this point.
And if you blinked, you might have missed it, but Asymmetric actually roamed up towards the mid lane there and blew his flash to go for a death sentence on a Rutinium, who had to flash in turn. So both supports not going to have access to that summoner anymore. Rutinium, the one being punished for it, as he's going to be flayed back from his Zenith Blade here, chunked out incredibly low, but Fallen Artemis is here to make the difference in the fight. As he flashes forward, he lands the Eep onto Asymmetric, and he's going to pick up first blood for himself, pushing farther onto Alive, who's going to be forced to flash away in order to stay, as his name implies. Fallen Artemis is going to take that first blood.
Exactly. As you mention the summoner spell in Texi top lane, I might have to hold this point here, but no flash on the Thresh means that Lilia spends no time wasting her flash to get in, gets a kill in the bot lane, and they're going to be more than happy with that one. First blood on a Lilia, always going a long way.
Yeah, this wave is pushing in towards Blood King, but Intexi has run out of patience and is going to start moving up here. Meanwhile, Hexmist is engaging onto Rutinium in the bot lane, but he doesn't have any backup, and he's found himself in a 1v2. He's going to manage to dodge out onto the Deadly Flourish there, as Rutinium is going to end up being picked up by Alive, and now Twisty is getting engaged on by Sluter. He's going to be able to be soloed out here, as Sluter has stolen away the Solar Flare, is going to stun up the opposing AD carry, and is going to pick up a second kill for his team.
Exactly, nice little trade back into the bot lane. 2 people from Syndicate go top lane, and 4 from Akuma go bot lane. They pick up both of the bot laners here, and are able to take themselves the Ocean Dragon as well. This early game aggression from the Akuma Shurikens now starting to pay dividends, because they've picked themselves up some kills, picked themselves up a neutral objective. And if we call our way back to game number 1, Gordo, those neutrals were so important.
Certainly were, and it's going to be off to the side of the Akuma Shurikens this time. They were only able to get 1 dragon last game, and it was stolen away, so certainly a better look for them than it was in the first game, as they've also managed to pick away 2 kills here. Does not have a gold advantage for themselves, especially because the first blood was going over to Fallen Artemis, but certainly able to make a few things happen here now that they have the more aggressive jungler. Fallen Artemis coming up top, potentially for a gank here, but not going to be able to make anything happen.
No, the level 5 Lilia not quite having the same potency as that level 6 champion would have done. I like the fact they walked up, gave him a little love tap with the auto attack, uses phase rush and gets away before any trade is able to come all the way back right there. But the aggression needs to continue here for the Akuma Shurikens, because they're the team that is maybe slightly more so on the clock than the Omega roster, rather, with the Misfortune, with the Rek'Sai. These champions typically becoming more disadvantaged as we get into the later stages of the game, falling off a little bit more so than that Jhin, than that Lilia will do. The Rek'Sai definitely having a harder time, and the Misfortune becoming more of an ultimate bot as we find these team fights later and later on. Fallen now in the top side, helping to just push out this way for Blood King, who's still yet to take a recall.
Yeah, and it's important that you bring up the scaling there, because they are facing down a Mundo with no real tank busters over on their side. The Silas and this Misfortune are not the kind of champions that are perfectly equipped to melt through a Dr. Mundo, and as he gets up more and more items and is just regenning more and more, he's going to just be an impenetrable wall.
Yeah, and on the top side, I'm really interested by the play from Syndicate, I'll say right there. They spend time with Fallen and Blood King both in the top lane to push that wave and force the crash, but then don't make it go all the way into the turret right there. So 9line is actually still able to hold the wave in a really dangerous spot for Blood King and force him up to the top side of the map. So it looks like Cho'Gath actually going to push the wave back, and it doesn't matter too much at all. But, you know, if you're going to go for something like that, then maybe commit fully to it and ensure the complete crash. Cho'Gath pushing in the wave, making it redundant, as we see a play attempted down bot lane, and the death sentence going wide means that they're not going to be able to get anything for it.
Asymmetric has managed to land those blind death sentences before, but this is not going to be one of those games, as Hexmist going to get put to sleep, but managed to grab onto the Thresh Lantern in time to pull himself to safety. Is not going to be followed up on. That's going to be Lilia ultimate blown for nothing.
Well, they do get the Rek'Sai flash as well, so it's one of those cooldowns that reduces the engage potential tenfold by the Akuma roster. Sluter goes on in.
Sluter is going on in here. He's stolen away the Diana ultimate, is going to use it immediately for burst damage onto Intexi, and Hexmist has come up as well, going to be going in with that blue smite, going to get yanked in by the Diana ultimate from the Diana herself, but not going to be enough to finish her up. But Blood King has finished off a TP coming on into the mid lane. He's going to be chasing onto Hexmist. He flashes forward, and he finishes him off with his execute from his E. It's going to be a 1-for-1 trade overall in the mid lane, with Blood King on a clutch teleport managing to make it even.
Exactly, and you can see already the power of the Mundo here. Has only got a Spectre's Cowl and Kindle Gem, and they might look to fight him again.
Yeah, Blood King now does not have access to the Flash, does not have access to the ultimate, and so he's going to get flashed on, he's going to get Death Sentence, he's going to get melted through by Alive, picking up a second kill for himself on this game.
Exactly, and just as I mentioned the itemization, we can see the detriments that come from building Magic Resist. It is going to be when those heavy AD hitters roam on up and start hitting you. The Misfortune with the BF Sword, with the Long Sword, is in a beautiful position to be able to take down this Mundo. It won't last for long, but for the time being, Alive has the power to cut down this big tank.
Yeah, he has finished his Spirit Visage now, though, making that ultimate even more powerful and giving him some crucial resistances against the likes of Nineline Klein and Sluter, meaning he's going to be able to survive in these solo lanes perhaps a little bit better. Now, he's just going to be returning to lane, heading up on towards that top lane, going to defend his turret, going to farm up some minions as Hexmist has started up the Rift Herald and is looking to see if he can take that away.
Exactly, the extra 30% healing regenerate, or extra 30% bonus to all heals received by the Mundo, definitely going to help him out with the ultimate. But we can look also at the itemization of the bot laners right here and see that this bot lane for Akuma Shurikens is actually going heavily in their favor right now. It might not seem like too much given that Jin has 3 nice components here, but the lack of BF Sword is definitely very worrying here if you are a fan of Omega Gaming Syndicate, because trying to build up enough gold for a BF Sword post 5 or 6 minutes, it's definitely going to be very difficult for you unless you're finding lots of engages, lots of fights to pick up kills from. Twisty's now got to wait for enough gold from just bot lane minions to get up to that crucial 1300 gold marker. The first kill for Alive enabled the snowball to come through and enabled the Misfortune to get there, and Asymmetric could be looking for a play.
Asymmetric, the slow has been landed onto Rutinium, going to be met with the Death Sentence, going to pull Rutinium back into the team. He manages to flash out, though, before Hexmist is able to finish him away, and now he's getting hit by that bowling ball coming through from Lilia, going to be forced back here as the curtain call is opened up on by Jin. He's going to be looking for snipes here onto Alive. Hasn't managed to hit any, though. Going to land that 4th shot onto him, chunking him down incredibly low, but not enough to kill him without any follow-up. Fallen Artemis now here clearing away waves, but does not have the ability to get deeper in.
No, just going to clear out that wave, prevent any push, any dive from the Shurikens right there. And you can see that entire time, Intexi had the teleport available, so despite Sluter's roam, the Syndicate roster were always confident that they'd be able to match the play from Sluter. If that teleport did come through, they had the answer there for the Diana, who has now completed the Nash's Tooth, rather, and is fully online in this early to mid-game stage right here. Still just components for Sluter in the mid lane, has the Mercury Tread, so it's a little bit more safety in the 1v1. But in Texi, you can see with that fully completed item, with the pushed in wave, they're able to force Akuma back and they're able to net themselves their first dragon of the game.
Indeed, they are, as they are starting to find openings in this game. Their team comp, as we've talked about already, is going to scale better coming on into the late game. So gotta watch and see if Akuma Shurikens are going to be able to secure some of the objectives they need in order to snowball themselves farther ahead in the game.
And Mountain Soul here, going to be the one that is on the Rift right now. If that goes over to the Dr. Mundo, so many bonus resistances will be very harsh.
So we do have an all-in from Sluter in the mid lane, going to be landing abilities onto Intexi, but Intexi actually going to turn it around, going to land that ultimate back in, going to have Fallen Artemis backing him up, and Fallen Artemis going to pick up another kill onto Sluter.
Really nice play from Intexi right there, recognizing he doesn't need to land that Crescent Strike in order to use the Lunar Rush to jump on in, use the Moonfall, and bring the Silas back into danger. Nice nice hold of the Lilting Lullaby as well from Fallen, recognizing that he could get in range as well. Intexi play though mid.
Hexmist coming on in, going to be going forward with the blue smite, trying to burst out onto Intexi, and is actually going to be able to do so. Intexi had the way out, but chose to go back in. He didn't think that damage was available from Hexmist. Now Fallen Artemis going to actually be trading back on to him. It's going to be a 1-for-1 in the mid lane. Intexi maybe a little bit over-aggressive.
Yeah, and I mean, he flashed away from the knockup for a reason, right? You don't win that trade versus a Rek'Sai with a Serrated Dirk when you have no armor for yourself. It's definitely never a wise choice to jump right on in, especially because Xmas didn't even use the ultimate to get out and kill the Diana right there. The potential for the 1v1 was so abundant that Hexmist is quite happy to take that trade as soon as the Lunar Rush comes in and starts trying to take the duel back in the 1v1. I really like the itemization from Hexmist, though. You know, that Serrated Dirk, hoping to see it turn into an Umbral Glaive right here. Just a beautiful vision item. Could also be an Edge of Night, though, with the lethality pickup. Nineline trying to trade heavily again with Blood King on the top lane, and you can see that this Hail of Blades really hasn't done too much for him in the early game.
No, it really hasn't here. He's completed the Abyssal Mask. Now going to be looking for an all-in on a Blood King, though, but he's already used all of his Hail of Blades procs. Not going to get any real further advantages from that, as Blood King's just going to pop his own ultimate, going to regen up, but there's a gank in the bot lane as Hexmas has been pulled in by the Dark Passage. They're going to be
TP.
focused on right away, and there's TPs coming in as well. Fallen Artemis going to be backing up here, going to be cutting back to make sure that Hexmas dives under the turret. He's going to trade 1-for-1 with Twisty, as now the fight is going to be continuing. There's another TP coming in from Blood King here. They're going to burst out onto Intexi. So far, it's a 2-for-1 in favor of the Akuma Shurikens, and they are trying to back away. Blood King going to be knocked up here as well. He's going to be followed up on along with the rest of Omega Gaming. They might be able to pick him up here, but he's going to flash away. Fallen Artemis now running interference, throwing over some of those balls as he can, but not quite going to be able to make anything happen here. Sluter now has stolen away the Leona ultimate, going to only land a little bit of the edge on Rutinium, not quite able to get the engage that he wanted there, as they're going to continue backing away. They have full control over this bot lane turret, but they aren't going to get any more kills.
Yeah, really nice play from Akuma right there. That was actually a 4v5 that Akuma were taking right there. Sluter very late to the party, but it didn't matter. Crucially, a few ultimates not available for Omega Gaming Syndicate. Lilting Lullaby still on cooldown from the kill in the mid lane onto Hexmist, and that masochism from Dr. Mundo wasn't available to take that trade in the bot lane as we saw it used in the top side of the map. Landline Klein was able to chow down on some nice Intexi meat right there, picked up a nice assist as it was asymmetric with the whip from the chain to take down the Diana, who TP'd in, unfortunately, to her own demise.
Yeah, important to look though. Fallen Artemis is absolutely huge on this Lilia pick. Has picked up the Haunting guys now, and at almost 17 minutes, going to have a significant amount of items under his belt. Has gotten those boots too. Has gotten his own runic echoes for his jungle item. Need to keep an eye on whether he's going to be able to be the difference maker in these fights. He's gotten such this high priority jungler. He has a great opportunity here to potentially carry this game.
Exactly, the B1 pick coming up huge and making plays happen across the map is what we love to see here. The priority in draft meaning being used and definitely being worthwhile here as Twisty opens up after landing a nice dancing grenade. I doubt it's going to result in too much, as hitting Miss Fortune is difficult at the best of times, and when she's got the strut on, it's going to be darn near impossible without any follow-up CC.
Yeah, a few blasts from the curtain call coming across, not really going to be having too large of an impact. So we are going to see both of these teams starting to head towards the bot lane area, as it is about 30 seconds left. That's going to be the Solar Flare coming in from Rutinium onto Live while he's all alone. He managed to get in and get through the Dark Passage just in time, chunked down to sub 100 HP, has the Dancing Grenade following him, but manages to survive. Is now going to go for that recall, but this means he's not going to be present, as the side of Omega Syndicate are now looking to take position around this dragon.
Exactly. Once again, priority in Vision, the priority on the setup going the way of Syndicate off of a play that they initiate. As Twisty looking for a fight.
Twisty going to get flashed in on by the side of Hexmist. He blows the heal, but that's not even nearly enough, as Hexmist is going to melt through him here. Now, meanwhile, Nineline Klein finding himself in a 1v3, trying to get the feast down onto Intexi, but not going to be able to do so. He ends up going down to Intexi's Crescent Strike. Now, Sluter has completed a TP. He's got the Lilting Lullaby for himself. Rutinium has given up and wandered into the other side. Now, Intexi and Fallen Artemis going to be going in the 1v1. Both targets going to end up going into sleep here. Intexi going to dash back in before he dies, but is going to do so at the end of the day, and they haven't been able to pick up Sluter. Sluter is running away here, as now Rutinium has found himself in a 1v2. He has no chance of survival. He's going to get taken down by Alive, and Sluter going to manage to escape. Fallen Artemis not able to take him down in the 1v2, as control of the dragon going to go over to the Akuma Shurikens.
Yeah, and unfortunately Twisty getting caught out right there. The flash from Hexmist coming up huge, managing to pick off the AD carry before the fight ever even starts. The Shurikens here finding no trouble taking away this Mountain Dragon, putting themselves at the Drake lead once again in this game number 2 right here. And the gold lead dead even as we broach 19 minutes here. Blood King spent that entire time on the top side, and Hexmist could be looking for Twisty again.
Yeah, Hexmist going to be channeling the ultimate onto Twisty here, but finding himself in the middle of multiple targets, just going to be melted down and shut down by the side of Twisty. Excellently played by the side of Omega Gaming there. Fallen Artemis was ready for that ultimate to come through. He meets up with Twisty in the river, and he's able to guarantee that they can burst through Hexmist before Hexmist can burst through them.
Yeah, and you can see the danger fat signs from this Rek'Sai right here. Has opted for that Edge of Night, so a little bit more of a cost injection into that item. But it's definitely going to be useful here. Blocking a single skill shot can definitely be the difference in the engages right here. The engage from Omega Gaming Syndicate, so reliant on those pick skill shots. Something like the Swirl Seed that can engage into a Lilting Lullaby. Something like the Solar Flare from range, or a single bullet from Jhin ulti can be the difference between getting slowed, not getting slowed, getting stunned, and not getting stunned here. So the Edge of Night is such a nice pickup, and actually adds a lot of damage to this Rek'Sai, who was, recognized that it's an early game champion, But if you're able to assassinate in the late game, then you've done your job just fine.
Certainly the case, and is going to be what Heximus is looking to transition to now that he's completed some more of these lethality items. But now we're going to see Intexi hovering around on the other side of the wall. He's aware that his opponents are here, but does not want to go for the invade yet, as here comes Rutinium going in for the engage off of the flank, misses the solar flare, but has still caused the fight to get started out on Asymmetric, going to stun himself as he goes for the death sentence, as it's going to be a turn in from Intexi, a good ultimate onto 2 targets, going to melt down Asymmetric, and also going to take down the opposing mid laner as well. Now Alive has found himself caught out in the middle of multiple players, and it's going to be a fight win for the side of Omega Gaming Syndicate, 3-0.
Exactly, and it is a 5v3 at the back end of the fight right there, so there's no chance for the Akuma roster to try and take that fight right there. 9line.
Now, 9line going to end up being put to sleep by that Lilting Lullaby, going to be met up with the Eep, going to be met up with the root from that other target as well, and now they're going to be able to get through that mid lane turret along with the Rift Herald. Twisty coming in through with the Deadly Flourish to make sure that 9line Klein had nowhere to escape.
Yeah, nice little use right there. They trade 1 for 1, and definitely on the back end of the fight, which was already Omega Gaming Syndicate favored, that trade in itself going to be more than applicable to the Syndicate roster. Trading the Flash and the ultimate from the Cho'Gath, definitely going to be worth your solo kill on the support that the Cho'Gath was able to get. Down in the bot lane, though, as well, important to mention that Intexi was able to get that turret. Looks like he's going to maybe die for his sins here, as 3 members from Akuma are trying to collapse.
Yeah, Sluter going to be chasing in here, going to be landing on those chains, and now his fate is sealed as he's going to use that stolen Diana ultimate. It's up to Intexi to see if he can trade something back here, but you got to believe it's not going to be in the cards, as Intexi now just going to try to juke back and forth until Sluter is finally able to pick him up. He was able to buy a couple of seconds there, but he is going to end up going down at the end of the day.
Yeah, slight overextension trying to push in the second wave after the turret had been felled. Means that he does go down, but I mean, that is still overall going to be a profitable sequence of events for the Syndicate side. Obviously, it's brilliant that the Akuma Scimitars are able to find an advantage off the back end of it, and good that they're able to punish the overextension from Intexi. But you have to remember that we're coming into this mid-game right here with a significant lead for Omega Gaming Syndicate. The Dragons aren't in their favor, but the gold lead definitely is. And with 1.5 minutes on the next Mountain Dragon, you have to feel like Syndicate, on the back of this incredibly strong top side, should be able to start taking team fights. We talked about this roster, or this composition rather, being one that outscaled the Akuma Scimitars. And with the scaling coming firmly through right now, with 2 items on your Dr. Mundo, 2 items on your Jhin, you're definitely looking to maybe make these team fights start to stick and start to hurt a lot more.
Absolutely the case, Rudude, as we're keeping an eye on things here, as we are going to see seeing this next dragon spawning up soon. Got to be keeping an eye on how Akuma is actually going to be able to withstand this. They're a team that has never been put in this sort of position before, as they are now finding themselves behind in a second game in a row.
Indeed, and I'm looking at the builds right here from the Akuma roster right here. I'm drawn to this mid lane by Sluter right here. It's built so heavily into the defense against the Intexi and Fallen combo right here. If Twisty is able to find any access onto Sluter, then this Sylas is going to be incredibly squishy. Doesn't even have a secondary damage item coming through just yet. Just focused solely on that healing, solely on the magic resistance coming on through. And yes, with the Conqueror and the Kingslayer, the healing can be very ridiculous and very devastating to a team fight. But if Intexi, or rather Twisty, is able to just find an angle to fire a couple of shots in, this Sylas will melt.
Yeah, it works for the stolen Satum as well, which I think is part of the plan here, to be able to steal away that Mundo ultimate and use his strength against him, regenning so much in these extended team fights for the Akuma Shurikens. As Asymmetric going to be forced to flash away here, was at risk of getting hit by a Deadly Flourish, and now there's going to be a 2-man, 3-man sleep coming in from the side of Fallen Artemis. They're going to melt immediately through 9line Klein. The ultimate from Misfortune is coming across, but it might not be enough here, as an ultimate comes through from the Diana, trying to burst somebody out, but gets killed before the damage is able to come through. Sluter now going to try to carry this fight, but he's going to get taken down by the side of Twisty. It is a 3-for-2 in the extended fight so far. Blood King chasing down onto more targets, and Heximus has retreated into the enemy's jungle. Blood King is on the hunt, but likely not going to be able to find him here. Maybe not, though, as Heximus has interrupted the recall to try to come over and steal this dragon. He's coming in. There is no smite available to the other side. They're just going to try to burst through Heximus. They're actually going to steal away the dragon. It's a disaster for the side of the Akuma Shurikens, as Heximus is going to end up going down. Rutinium going to go on into that stasis to protect himself, and it's going to be both a kill and a dragon going over to Omega Gaming Syndicate.
And Syndicate do the right thing right there. They turn onto the jungler as soon as he dives into the pit. And it's actually the dancing grenade from Twisty that bounces off of Hexmist onto the dragon to secure it. The smite coming through just a smidgen too early right there. And it is going to be the second Drake of the game picked up for Omega Gaming Syndicate. That being said, we're 25 minutes into the game right here, and it's going to be another 10 before either team is able to pick up a soul. And yes, it's the Mountain Soul, which enables Baron, but we have to feel like before then, a Baron is going to at least be contested, at least be focused around, because it is such a game-ending buff in its own right that both of these teams are going to be looking to either deny it or to secure it for themselves.
Certainly going to be the case, as now we can see both parties going to be grouping up a little bit closer to this mid lane. The dragon is down once again. Nobody wants to see a Baron stolen away without their knowledge. Vision advantage currently over to the side of the Shurikens, but doesn't look like Omega are going to allow that to stay that way for too much longer. They've brought down their top laner into this mid lane to make sure that they have priority. They've recalled Fallen Artemis, who's now coming to join up as well, and they're soon going to be trying to push into that river.
And as we reach this portion of the game right here, going to be a little of a lull phase that we're entering right here with Baron firmly on the table, but Drake not up for another 3.5 minutes here. We're waiting for either team to make that step toward the Baron, right? What we're looking at is sort of the scaling aspects from the rosters that we talked about being important in the draft and how they're starting to affect these team fights here, because that team fight that we saw around the Dragon was a key example of the issues that the Akuma roster are going to run into. Alive found it easy to throw out the ultimate, but after that, the auto attacks coming through were either meaningless because they were onto Blood King or just weren't finding any damage whatsoever because they wasn't in a position to do so, just due to the nature of the champions, right? You can see here that Blood King's picked up 3 items for himself, one of each defense, and then a Warmog's armor, just to be so obnoxious in that front line that doesn't necessarily need the ultimate for the increased healing, because if an extended fight happens where he doesn't have the ulti, they can just heal up after the fact as well and become such a brutal frontliner once again after the fight.
We talked about this earlier, Dude. Blood King now is going to be nigh unkillable for the side of the Akuma Shurikens. They just do not have the picks or the items to be able to deal with this 3-item Mundo who's going to be running around. He's going to have Sadism on, he's going to have Masochism on to reduce the CC duration, and he's just going to be an absolute menace.
Let's see. They hit it, but...
There we go. It's going to be a deadly flourish coming through onto Alive. He's going to get away with that Thresh Lantern, but that means that his remaining 2 teammates are going to be stuck in here with the Lilting Lullaby. They're just going to chain CC 9-line Klein until he goes down, and here comes the TV from Sluter, but he's forced to run away as well. He doesn't want a 1v1 Blood King. Nobody does, as there's going to be a flank engage coming through from Intexi. He gets a huge 3-man ultimate onto multiple targets. Not going to be able to kill them all, though, as Asymmetric going to end up going down in trade for Intexi. It is now a 4v3 in the map. It's a flash forward from Twisty, going to be able to pick up the kill onto Hexmist, and now it's going to be a double kill for him. They're now chasing down onto Sluter. Sluter has stolen away that Diana ultimate. Let's see if he's able to make the difference, as Rutinium going to end up picked up as a result. Fallen Artemis now alone in that base, as Twisty has retreated and Blood King never entered in the first place. It's going to end the fight there for now, but it is a numbers advantage for the side of Syndicate as they're going to start pushing onto this mid lane turret.
They have a 3v2 for the time being, and some unsynchronized flashes over the wall.
Oh, and that's a flash forward from Sluter. He's going to be able to execute onto Twisty and is now looking for more onto Fallen Artemis. Can Fallen Artemis make this happen? Blood King just wailing on him this entire time, but doesn't have the burst damage available. He's finally going to be able to do it, as he is dominating 7-1 and 5 on this Mundo.
And you can see that entire time, Alive was just whacking away at the Dr. Mundo. He's half HP, can heal all that up with the Warmogs. The tank capabilities of this Mundo, so prevalent right here. Oh, but Lilia...
Oh, Blood King going to be on the other side here. 9-line Klein now going to be popping that Righteous Glory, going for the engage here, but gets slowed down by the Cleaver. Excellently played by Blood King, coming in on this flank here to protect his jungler. Now Fallen Artemis going to be using those procs, going to be getting faster and faster as he lands abilities. He's going to force 9-line Klein to retreat away with this Dark Passage. Now Hexmist going to be doing the exact same thing, but he's going to find the exact same Mundo just wailing away at him at this entrance to the lane. He cannot get forward. He cannot chase Fallen Artemis.
No, he can't. Sadism popping off, going huge.
Oh, and Blood King now advancing forward as a stun does get landed down onto Alive, and he's going to get bursted through. Fallen Artemis picking through another kill, and Blood King just going to keep chasing through. You shall not pass this jungle ramp, and he's going to keep chasing. He's going to force Hexmist out of his own jungle. He's going to steal away the Gromp. He is running things on the Rift.
He is. This Dr. Mundo just going exactly where he pleases right here. Fallen Artemis even walking back in to rub salt in the wounds. They spent 4 members trying to chase down this Lilia, who used Phase Rush and got away safely. Didn't even need to get to sacrifice her own life right there. They're able to pick up a kill on the back end of it as well. Alive, not living up to the namesake, unfortunately, right there. 2 consecutive deaths, meaning that the team fight is firmly in favor of Syndicate, and now the neutral objective game is as well. We're 30 minutes here into game number 2, and no soul has been picked up, but at this point in the game, any team fights that go your way are nearly game ending.
Certainly the case in that Dream-Laden Bow, the passive from the Lilia, able to keep Fallen Artemis alive for so long there, was able to just stack up so much movement speed and able to keep kiting around as a result.
You can see here with the Lilia's item build that this is actually such a greedy build path, really, from Fallen, opting for no Zhonya's as a secondary item right here. I can understand Leandri's coming through after Runic Echoes because the Lilia was very far ahead, but Rylai's after that to slow down your enemies and not even going for the Zhonya's 4th item, 5th item right here is so greedy, looking instead to the Morellonomicon, giving himself a little bit more magic penetration, something that he's lacking from the Swifties. We're definitely seeing a very glass cannon Lilia here. Despite all the health built up, he's still very susceptible to damage if it comes through.
Absolutely, as now we are going to be seeing the side of Omega Gaming Syndicate just posturing around this Baron. They have Fallen Artemis and Rutinium lurking around in the shadows, potentially going to find and engage onto any Akuma Shurikens members unfortunate enough to wander into that area. But they might be going for an engage here onto Twisty. They notice he might be a bit out of position, but he's fast enough on this Jhin to back away, and now they could get counterflanked from the members in the river.
They could do, and we can see Blood King looking for a trade on the bot side and handily winning it.
Yeah, already chunking 9-line Klein down to almost half HP. This Hail of Blades no longer able to give him any sort of advantage, and he is 7-1-6 on this Mundo. Absolutely huge, can just ignore Klein for as long as he needs to, can get some favorable trades, can keep getting the procs, can just walk on out, and is just going to be regenning it all back with the help of his passive and his Warmogs.
The current HP damage from a Dr. Mundo, meaning that the 1v1 versus this tanky member is actually going incredibly favorably for him right here. Not to mention the fact that he is now 4-item Dr. Mundo with tier 2 boots and a level lead as well. Level 16 picked up as well. That sadism going to be huge in team fights. You can see right here, he just does not care. The Thresh can come too. It's not enough to take down this Mundo.
It's not even close to enough, Rude. You wonder why the Thresh is even here. It's now he's going to be landing the hook, but it's already been the ultimate proc. He's going to be having Grievous Wounds on him, but the healing is so much anyway that it doesn't even matter. This is just a waste of abilities. They've used the Ignite. They've got 2 members down here. He's still at full HP. He's under the turret, Rude. They can't do it. And now here comes Hexmist. He's going to be coming for this engage too. I really don't think 3 makes a difference. I don't think it does.
And you can see that Hexmist tunnels on in, and then immediately Omega start up the Baron. It's already gone here. The Rek'Sai went down bot lane to try and take down the Dr. Mundo, but they absolutely stood no chance at doing it. The Baron goes over to Syndicate, and Blood King's just laughing. He pressed R, he could have done absolutely nothing, stood underneath the turret, and been absolutely fine. Instead chooses to fight back, which is, you know, fairly wise, I will say. But you can see right here that the Syndicate roster has reached that late game glory that we were talking about in the early game, and that at this point, Akuma are definitely feeling the detriments of their team's picks. The Misfortune still just throwing out ultimates, and we've seen the power of it, that team fight around this exact area, in fact. Had a really nice Misfortune ulti that was able to take down Intexi, one of the leading sources of damage. But if you don't get that across 5 members, then it just doesn't have the same impact. We're looking for the Wonder ult if we're looking for any fight at all.
Absolutely, and now Rutinium going to be joining his top laner down in this bot lane, making sure that he can just freely continue whamming away at this turret. He's got the ultimate back already, going to channel it right away, and now the rest of his team going to group up in this bot lane as they're going to force this wave into here. They're going to take away that inhibitor turret. They're now going for the engage. Blood King running rampant in the back line here, going to flash forward along with his jungler. That's going to be a huge Diana ultimate on top of the Lilting Lullaby, going to melt down 2 targets immediately. Lilia's gone down, but it doesn't matter as the entirety of the Akuma Shurikens are wiped off the map. Twisty going to end up going down as well as a result, but they have the Baron buff, they have the massive AD steroid on the Mundo, and you gotta believe that they're going to be able to ignore Alive as long as they need to and take this Nexus.
Yeah, I mean, Rutinium or Blood King are more than happy to take up these Nexus turrets and just wail on this Misfortune here.
Yeah, and now he's just going to engage onto it. It's going to be the Flash Zenith Blade coming through from Rutinium. You can't use the Flash after the game. Might as well use it now, as they're just going to melt through the Nexus, and they're going to go up 2-0 in this series. Match point for the side of Omega Gaming Syndicate, as they're trolling around a little bit, channeling some TPs, but the game is going to end.
I know what anybody coming in to tonight expected here, Gordo. A 2-0 start for Omega Gaming Syndicate. They've put themselves firmly on the map in this series here with a dominant display of scaling composition. Last game round, they took themselves some early game leads and snowballed them. This time around, they've played it slow, played it reserved, but managed to get themselves the advantages when they needed to and picked up the win once again.
And forget who was the favorite in this series, Dude, as Omega Gaming Syndicate has now won 4 games in a row against the Akuma Shurikens, with their last 2 in the regular season and now the first 2 in this series. It's gotta be on the side of the Akuma Shurikens to find some kind of adaptation of this team, but so far they have not been able to do it.
They definitely haven't, and you can see that the early game style from Akuma, a bit of a switch up from game one to game two, didn't have the results that they were hoping for here. And I think here that this is the beautiful time to try and announce or give a theory for MVP here for game number two, because I mean there were multiple members right there that we go for, but I think both of us are drawn to the top side immediately.
Yeah, certainly the case there, Blood King going 8-1-10 on this Mundo. Absolutely huge in this game.
Exactly. I think that is a valiant effort from the Doctor Mundo on the top side. It seems fairly trivial to give it to the member with the best KDA, but with the amount of dominance that he was able to assert in the side lane, the amount of power that he had down anywhere that he went, forcing members left and right, forcing the jungler out of the jungle multiple times as well. I think that nobody will have an issue with it going to Blood King here for game number two.
No, I was thinking Brawl and Artemis for almost the entire game, but then at the point that Blood King is
Yeah.
1v3ing champions and standing under a turret at the same time, how can you not give it to him?
Exactly. I'm right there with you. I don't want to take anything away from Fallen here because he had a beautiful early game starting off 4-0-0 and transitioning that into a beautiful engage as well in the base with a nice Lilia combination being the Q flash into the ultimate and then no Zhonya's to keep himself safe, but with the lead that they had, didn't need the safety. So yeah, I think Fallen will feel hard done by, but when you've got the Blood King right there running rampant as he was, I'm afraid Fallen that it's going to get taken away.
And with that, Omega Gaming Syndicate going to buck everybody's expectations, taking it up 2-0 in this series, looking to close it out in an easy 3-0 coming into this next game. We're going to take a quick break while we get on into that champion select, but do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.